Hello and welcome to Zestology, the podcast all about energy, vitality and motivation. I'm Tony Wyson, and today I'm with a guest whose life took a different course after a simple green juice, which may sound mysterious, but you'll just have to listen on to find out what that's all about. He's now an absolute rock star in the world of fitness, nutrition, mindset, a huge heart for others, doing his bit to transform the world one juice at a time. You will like the company of today's guest, and Drew is really awesome. In this podcast, we talk about the best way to eat healthily on the road. You might not be able to afford it, but it literally is the best way. It's fantastic. We also look at the humble weed that could change your life, and what happens when you go on a 6-month meditation retreat. Sounds quite a long time, to be quite honest. Give me a week's meditation retreat anytime. Talking of meditation retreats, I recorded this a few months ago, so you will notice that when I talk about my recent experience at 40 years of Zen, it sounds very fresh, and that's because it was slightly less fresh now. It was a few months ago, and well, I'm obviously so organised that it's taken until now to publish this one because I had a big backlog of podcasts, but I'm so pleased that I was able to interview Drew because he's just an awesome guy and I know you're going to like him. So here he is, Drew Canole on Zestology. Drew, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
Absolutely, man. I love being on the show and I love what you're about. You know, Shauna's a big fan as well. And when she gave me the opportunity with you, I was like, hey, let's do this.
Yeah, well, likewise. And, you know, I've been following you for a long time. And of all the different things that you do, I love a lot of the stuff that you do around mindset. But tell me how you kind of got into this all, because you kind of work on a lot of different things with people. So it'd be good for people to kind of know your background and how you got into this whole area.
Yeah, so Fit Life TV was started 6 years ago. I was 40 pounds heavier. I was out of shape. I was lethargic, and I knew I needed a transformation, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. So I was living in Florida at the time. I was running a credit and debt settlement company. I didn't really have like a lot of purpose in my life. So I was presented with my very first green juice. And as I drank it, I felt something different. I felt my cells start to recharge. I felt more mental clarity. I started to drop gluten, dairy, wheat, artificial sweeteners, and I noticed I had a lot more ability to focus in my life on the things that I desired. So I moved from Florida at that time to California, and I changed my environment completely. I knew nobody. I lived in California. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I went on a 6-month meditation retreat, and I really started to discover that anything, and one of my mentors, Frank, he told me if I do anything at all, make sure I'm doing something that impacts, motivates, inspires other people. So that's what I chose to do. I just started making YouTube videos. I started vlogging 6 years ago on YouTube, and I started to talk about the powers of your mitochondria and juicing. And I started doing a Mindset Monday every single week, and we've been giving away a juicer for 6 years. And over that time, we built a community of around 3.5 million people. And it's because we come from the truth. We're truth seekers. And I'm connecting with other truth seekers that are out there that are excited about the possibility of expansion at this place and time. Yeah. So every piece of content, every video that we put out there, it's all meant to help somebody raise their consciousness, to increase their vibration on an energetic level and really get the dreams that they've been dreaming their whole entire life, but they haven't really woken up to it. So I'm a catalyst for change. I'm a cause, and I help people wake up to their true potential.
So the 6-month meditation retreat, that's a long old retreat, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just, meditating every day, dude, ceaselessly. And I was getting grateful for everything in my life up to that point. It was all learning lessons. There was nothing good or bad about the experience. It just was. And really leaning into the discomfort of change. A lot of humans get bound. They get constricted. They have these energetic chains on them. They become complacent. So I believe complacency in some ways is good, but oftentimes it can lead to a slow death. So feeling inspired to start recording these videos was one of the greatest things that I ever did. And it's just built this community and this legacy. And now we have a superfood company we started 2 years ago called Organifi. We're in every country. We have the #1 superfood on Amazon. And it's all starting with mindset, which is why I love what you do so much.
Yeah. And, this is primarily audio, this podcast, but for people who are watching, they're able to see that you're walking the walk and you're actually drinking the green juice at the same time.
Yeah, I got my green juice here. It's my favorite recipe. It's dandelion, kale, ginger, lemon, Swiss chard, celery, cucumber. Lots of ginger. Spicy.
Yeah,
but
that's the secret.
Yeah, detoxifying. It is hydrating. It's alkalizing. And I believe when your body's in an alkaline state, everything just works better.
Well, yeah, and I've spoken to quite a few people who've said similar things on this podcast. Dandelion, I feel like that's something that's more readily available in the US than the UK. In fact, I hear about it a lot more in the US. I think someone told me about it last time I was over in the States, and I kind of came back all enthusiastic and tried to find it over here and couldn't find it. But that's good for you, isn't it, dandelion?
Well, it's a weed that actually, if you mow your lawn, you get those little yellow flowers popping up. Those are actually dandelions. So it's the greens from that, but they're actually 4 times more powerful than kale. Kale's believed to be one of the most powerful super greens on the planet, but dandelion is so much more powerful. There's so much magnesium. There's so much vitamin K, D, all of these things in dandelion greens. Not enough people know it though,
So you gave up gluten, dairy. What else was it? There was quite a long list of things you mentioned there, and I feel like sometimes that kind of daunts people a bit.
Yeah, gluten, dairy, artificial sweeteners. Some of the colors that's in our food now too, like yellow 40, red 5 or whatever, yellow 5, vice versa. All those colors, the GMOs, genetically modified food, all of this stuff just kind of hampers us. When we talk about mindset, one thing that I really like about the mind is this little gland that we have inside it. It's called the pineal gland, and that's the seat of our soul. It's the mother of intuition. So our ability to connect to source, our ability to look at another human being in the eyes and see that it's not separate from us, but it just is, and we're part of that is. That's powerful. And the fastest road to that is to have complete access to your pineal gland. And when you get complete access to your pineal gland, magical things happen. Lucid dreaming starts to enhance, recall, almost like this ability to send telepathic messages to the people that you love. But you can't have all this calcium buildup around your pineal gland. So one of the big components of juicing is actually to help decalcify that. It's to put you in an alkali state so that it's easier for that to operate.
Right. So just going back to the gluten and dairy, how kind of, for instance, I've been away for the weekend in Gibraltar and doing a TV show over there. And it's one of those ones where, you can't really take food with you. And I took a few of my supplements and stuff like that. But, my absolute optimal level diet, I wasn't able to eat. I was kind of stuck in a sports hall all weekend. In that situation, how do you kind of plan out your diet for the day?
Like if I'm traveling.
If you're traveling, and you know it's going to be hard, and you might be filming, you might be on the road or whatever. Kind of to what length do you stick to your diet, and how do you adapt when it's not ideal?
Yeah, well, and in a perfect world, I have a personal assistant who prepares all my meals for me, and then we FedEx them overnight wherever I'm going.
Yeah, that's amazing.
My meals, I have my snacks, I have my juice, just sent directly where I'm going to be. Because it's a lot easier for me to get organic, sustainable food, wild caught fish, all these other things that are out in California, and send it anywhere in the world than it is to try to find that. So that's what I would do. Now, if your budget doesn't allow you to do that, or it's just it's too much work. Like people fall into these stories, these victimhood conversations of it's not possible. And I want to encourage you to, first of all, to say that it is. And for some reason, if you're just traveling and you haven't done that, then it's easy to find things that don't have gluten, dairy, sugar stuff. Primarily what I'll do is I'll eat kind of like a paleo diet. I know you had Dave Asprey on your show. I played around with the bulletproof stuff for a while, but I'm more into the paleo stuff. And then I'll just add 64 ounces of green juice to that. So I'll find a place that makes juice. If they don't make juice, a smoothie, pretty much anywhere you go, you can find a blender. Most hotels have blenders that they'll let you use. So if you're in an area, even a 3-star hotel has access to blenders. And what I do is I just tell them I have blood sugar regulation things that I'm working on. And what they'll do is they'll send a blender to your hotel room, and then I'll just go to Whole Foods or something, get a bunch of veggies, and I'll get some lean cuts of protein, and I'll just have that the whole entire time. so you can maintain that. I like to go 80-20 with my diet. Like 80% of the time I'm eating like a champion. I have my meals, I have my snacks. The other 20%, I'm not going to, worry about it. There will be an occasional trip to a fast food joint. There will be pizza every once in a while. I'm not going to live in a bubble.
Right. So you absolutely would very occasionally eat gluten or dairy, but it's just very occasional.
Absolutely. Once a week, maybe.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
My girlfriend will bust out some ice cream out of the fridge, and occasionally I'll have a couple scoops of that. But again, it comes from a organic farm. It has coconut sugar versus normal sugar. Like there's a lot of things that you learn in nutrition as you accelerate and advance up the path.
Yeah, I just want to get back to that personal assistant thing. I think I want to be as successful as you, Drew, because that sounds pretty awesome. You just get someone just cook up all your meals or send it overnight. That's just awesome. That's what I want.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it, my friend. You really do come to value life on a whole new level when you go through the trenches and get to the place of where I am. I mean, I feel so blessed to have that person, Jocelyn in my life that does everything for me like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then so you've got obviously on a kind of day-to-day level, you've got the nutrition nailed and you're very clear about what you want. But I know that one of the things that you work on with yourself and with clients and with everyone that watches your videos as well is a deeper thing, a sense of values and beliefs and identities. I know you talk about transformation quite a bit as well and asking these important questions. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that's the juicy stuff. And I believe if you're trying to materialize the proper figure, if you're a woman, or the physique, if you're a man, like it really takes the mindset to do it. We talked about green juice about 7 minutes ago. You got to alkalize your body with the power of green juice. You also have to alkalize your thinking. There's a lot of acid out there. There's CNN. There's constant negative news. There's things that people do on a daily basis that just puts them in a fear state. So fear is overrunning the world today, and people cling to it because it's part of that occipital cortex, that reptilian brain that we all have. It's the muskrat, coming up out of the hole, or the guinea pig, whatever, comes up out of the hole, and they look for the eagle. It's like the first thing that they do to protect themselves. And as human beings, we can get preconditioned to that as well. So to really break past that, we have to get rid of all those fear conversations, those negative thoughts, those toxic relationships, those friends that aren't necessarily the reflection of what we want to materialize in our life. And we get to advance. We really do get to rise up and evolve where we are to reach the upper echelon or the zenith of humanity. And the world needs us more now than ever in this particular domain. So alkalizing your thinking, maintaining a proper morning ritual is key for me. So every morning reading scripture, getting into work, doing the affirmations, doing the gratitude, going to the gym, drinking the green juice, meditating. And every once in a while you're not going to do that. And that's okay.
Yeah. And forgiving yourself for that.
Yeah. There's I suck at a lot of stuff. I really do. There's things that I'm just absolutely terrible at, but I am the best in the world at forgiving myself every day and every second. And I think that's one of the biggest keys to success.
Right. Very interesting. You talk about fear. Andy mentioned Dave Asprey earlier on. I've just taken his 40 Years of Zen program in Seattle in the last month or so. When you go and get electrodes stuck to your head for 5 days and you work on some pretty deep states and work on deepening your meditation and your meditative practice as well. And throughout the course of the week, the thing that came up for me again and again was fear. Where my fear comes from, working through why it pops up as much as it does, and becoming more comfortable with the uncomfortable, if you like. And that's a theme that I've kind of taken with me since, and I found really helping in terms of taking me to new places and kind of developing myself.
Yeah, for sure. I think that 40 days of Zen and deepening your meditation is so powerful. What have you noticed with the results from doing that so far in your life? How has it shown up?
I mean, on a practical level, they encourage you to make a more regular meditative practice And because you're kind of sitting there with these electrodes stuck to your head, they really encourage you to see exactly what happens when you do meditate well. And your kind of brain's, it's almost like kind of training a dog, you know, it's encouraging your brain to to do more of the good stuff when you're meditating. But also at the same time, you know, they've got a couple of, you know, very highly trained kind of neuro doctors and doctors kind of in a therapeutic setting. So, you know, you're looking at why you do what you do, what programs are running that you could improve on. So the self-awareness thing for me was the most powerful, and it's been about 6 weeks since I did it, and there's been every week there's kind of more revelations like, oh yeah, that's why I do that, and therefore if I just by being aware of it, I'm kind of noticing improvements already. So yeah, it's been a pretty cool process actually. You know, the day after I was like, yeah, that was pretty good, and 6 weeks after I'm still noticing the benefits of it. So it was exciting actually.
I love it. Yeah, meditations. I mean, it's absolutely changed my life.
So yeah, so how long do you meditate for? A day or a week, or how do you do it?
No, when I meditate during the day, it's usually for 3 to 5 minutes.
Great.
And I do a Japanese style where it's open eye. Okay. So my eyes are open, and when I breathe out, I'm opening up my peripheral gaze, and when I breathe in, I'm focusing on one single thing. So I have a D2, D4 genetics, which means basically hunter, explorer, somebody who's always pushing humanity forward, focused, driven, like the Navy SEAL brain, right? And when I'm in that state, it's very important for me to really realize that I'm safe. I came from a very turbulent childhood. 1 to 5, I was tortured. I was basically trained like a Navy SEAL. Wow. I mean, I'm talking horrific stuff.
Really?
Yeah, like my baths were like full submersion, holding my head underneath the water as a child, pulling me out, cried, smacked, shoved back in. I was tortured as a kid. So that left me with a lot of instability growing up as a child in relationships and stuff. So what I've done over the past 2-3 years is I've really worked through that. And I'm using it in my benefit to establish more routines and more rituals that can leave me feeling balanced, safe, at peace, and a cause for other people to help them change, because we're all abused in some way or another. We abuse ourselves every day. So the meditation practice that I do is open eye because I find that that's best. And it's more of, instead of sitting like this with your legs crossed and your hands like this to pull the energy down through your chakras and everything else, you're literally sitting on your knees like this with your hands right on your hara. In Japanese, they talk about your hara.
Okay.
And you're breathing from here, and it's an open eye meditation. And as you breathe out, your peripheral gaze opens up. You breathe in, you focus on one thing in front of you. And what I find is by consistently doing that every day, you become the witnesser. You are now witnessing yourself interacting with awareness itself. So you're separate from the human emotion, the human body, the human desires, the ego, and you are literally source witnessing the experience.
Do you think that the traumatic upbringing that you had has contributed towards this extraordinary drive that you have now?
Absolutely. Everything, right? Nothing's bad. It's just what is, and it's all a learning thing. Like, I believe on some way I chose. I had a lucid dream once where I had lucid dream all the time. But I had one dream where I literally went back, and it was the point of conception in this life experience. And it was like 13 years before I chose to come into physical form. And I was speaking to Source. I was in this white room, and I was explaining what I wanted to do, what I wanted to create, what I wanted to learn. And I chose to be placed in this home that was turbulent and abusive for the first 5 years so that I could take that and help inspire humanity and move and change and do what I'm doing now. But it took a while to learn that. It's like we all have amnesia when we come into this life experience.
Yeah. I mean, I know there are some people that be quite skeptical about what you just said, that you kind of lucid dreamt about something that happened before you were born. I mean, there will be skeptics who say, yeah, well, that was just a dream, right?
Yeah. How do you know you're dreaming now? How do you know you're awake? Like, everything's a dream, I think. There's a great book by Carlos Castaneda called The Journey to Islam. I don't know if you've read it, but it's, how do you know that you're not dreaming now? How do you know you're really...
I haven't read it, but I'll put it on the list. You mentioned D4 genetics. What's that?
D2,
what was that?
So it's MRI scans and genetic testing has now shown that there's different subsets of people. There's the D2, D4, and there's also what's called the farmer brain. Okay. The farmer brain is very systematic. It's the processors, it's the operators. The visionaries, the leaders have the D2, D4 genetics generally, and they're the people that are kind of helping, not only leading from the back, but leading from the front. They're always pushing themselves. They're the people that will work 14 to 16-hour days without thinking. It's almost like OCD, obsessively compulsed, relentless athletes, people that are just consistently going, and not, looking back is what the D2, D4 genetics are. Yeah. And it all happened when the landmass of South Africa separated, right? People started to travel because they had to look more. Hunters started to travel more, looking for more food so that they could bring it back to the farmers and the gatherers at that time. And over, thousands of years, the landmass separated. More of the D2, D4 genetic archetypes started to hunt and gather in different places. And now we have, it's just a genetic offshoot. And they're proving that now. So it's also the people that, on the other end of the spectrum, they're the sociopaths, they're the people that are manipulative, they're the people that are criminals. So it's like one way or another. Right.
And how interested are you in genetics? Because I'm fascinated by the whole area.
I haven't studied it that much, but when it comes to like genetics of the brain and how the brain operates, like that lights me up.
I get the impression that it's a very young field. It's an emerging field that could dominate many of our discussions about health in, say, 20 years' time. And we're just starting to learn all about it now.
Yeah. What I really like is epigenetics, too, like the genetics of the environment.
Yeah.
Because I believe that's even more powerful than the actual genetics that you have, like turning those switches on and off. And the ability to do that at will through nanotechnology, through computers. Almost like the Matrix, you just plug this thing in your head and all of a sudden you start flipping switches in your brain.
Yeah.
Just on and off. I think that's pretty cool. To think about what could potentially happen in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I know some people have listened to this and have been inspired to, after listening to the podcast, go and get a 23andMe test and stuff like that. Yeah. But the truth is it's quite hard to find, even people who are well trained in this area, knowledge is expanding so quickly that it's hard to find someone really experienced to guide you through that maze of what's going on with all the details and all the knowledge that 23andMe gives you.
Yeah, I think so too. 23andMe is great though. I've had that test.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, the methylation stuff is fascinating. And I guess when you start to get your diet right, as you say, that's like, it's going to help you switch on the right genes, the right stuff, and able to express your full potential, whatever's going on with your genes in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, you've got this huge community now. It's over 3 million people. You're inspiring people, empowering people. You've got Organifi. What, apart from world domination, what's next?
I think self-domination, really understanding oneself. And I did a lot of explorative work this year. I went to Ascension Leadership Academy through the whole entire curriculum. A very powerful course in San Diego. It's an emotional intelligence course.
Okay.
So I've been doing that for 6 months. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of retrospection stuff that you spoke of. The awareness, the ability to see how you're showing up and getting the feedback necessary to make shifts in who you're being. So we have 70 employees, independent contractors that work at Organifi and FitLife TV. So having more emotional intelligence, working with them, being able to speak to their love language and assist them in their growth is very powerful for me. And that's my goal this year. If we're going to get to 100 million this year, when we do, that's going to be a big pivotal piece of it. And I know that it starts with me. I know how showing up in every moment is directly reflective of the mirrors that are out there looking back. So when I can speak to them from a place that's safe, from a place of harmony, from a place of peace, but also speaking from a place of expansion of this is your world, what would you like to create in it, and turning them into these massively infinite creators that I see them as, helping them do that, not forcing it, right? That's the goal for 2017.
Yeah. And do you ever come to London?
I've never been to London.
Well, you got to come. You got to come over, bring Organifi over, and we can share a green juice and film something in person. It'd be fantastic. I think you'd go down so well here.
I love it. We are starting to we're starting an office for Organifi in London actually this year. So when that happens, I'll come visit. Okay, we'll get together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I really think you'd do well. Yeah, I mean, I've been admiring from afar what you do for a long time, and it's good to chat in person. I mean, something I've asked everyone on this podcast is, what is one book? You mentioned a book earlier on, actually, but what is one book that you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy, vitality, and motivation? With a particular focus on energy, and I think a lot of stuff that you focus on is helpful with energy. So, what would your book and your tip be?
So I think, one of my favorite books of all time, and a lot of business people read this, but it's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I like Napoleon Hill. I think as far as stuff that's relative to this in particular podcast, there's a book called Transcend by Raymond Kurzweil that talks about all the future health, all the big vision stuff that's going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years. So if somebody is the 23andMe person and they're ready to sign up for a genetic test, Transcend is a great book to read.
Yeah, awesome. And then what about one tip for living with more energy, vitality, and motivation?
I think the biggest tip that I can offer is recognizing that you are a giving and receiving machine in every single moment. It's just flowing through you. To attach to any story about not having energy, lack of sleep, in anything in your life, lack of abundance, you have scarcity conversations, you're worried about making your next month's rent. When you realize that every in-breath you're receiving energy, and every out-breath you're giving energy back to the universe, there's nothing that you can hang on to that would disrupt your natural creation, that creative force that's inside of you. So I think it's just in every moment, every breath that you take, realize that you are in complete harmony, and it's passing through you. So then you're not taking responsibility for that energy anyways. You're connecting to the oneness that's all around us. And I may have just taken a few people on an ayahuasca journey there.
No, it's very well said. Do you know what? I like it when, obviously, on a day-to-day level, people want to live with more energy. But I love it when the conversation about energy gets a little bit deeper and we talk about, I think our knowledge of energy and how it works in between people and things is at such a primitive level compared to what it might be like in 50 or 100 years' time. We'll understand so much more about what's going on that we just can't see. So yeah, that was it. Have you done ayahuasca?
No, not yet. No. I'll do it eventually.
Yeah.
But it's powerful. I've had a bunch of buddies that have done it, and a couple of them have told me the same thing that science is now showing. You break a human being down to the molecular level, even you go past the individual human cell in a microscope, and what is it? It's liquefied, basically light. So as you walk around, you are literally stardust in a meat suit. So from that place of thinking, how much energy do you need? You are literally the sun walking around. And when you really believe that, it's going to materialize in your life. How could you ever be tired with that type of thinking?
Yeah. And, we obviously self-awareness has been a bit of a theme of this podcast. I guess that would come more than anything from doing an ayahuasca journey. Yeah. But I'm the same as you. I haven't done it yet. There's something about there's something about being sick repeatedly that I don't like. I think that might have held me back a little bit, but yeah. So
I think for some people it's great. For others, it can cause a lot of PTSD and other things. So piecing people back together after that. I've had a couple psychologist friends tell me about it, and it's there's definitely pros and cons, but I think there's a lot more pros to it than cons. So I'm a fan of it, and I haven't done it. We'll see what happens in the next year.
Yeah. Well, when you do, come back on and tell us about it.
Yeah. And the big a physical thing people can do for more energy, I'm holding it right now, is drink more water,
right,
and more green juice. Organifi in particular. We created the world's best superfood 2 years ago. It's got ashwagandha in it, lowers stress. We did clinical trials on it, help people lose weight, change their body mass index, actually lowered depression rates when people are on this stuff, which is cool. So that's a mindset thing, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's because literally there's a book Darren Hardy wrote too called The Compound Effect. When you do something good for yourself every day, you're building up your personal willpower or momentum, and that actually puts you in a good mood. So people with depression and all these other things, just by doing something good for themselves every day, start to release that, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, and also maybe it's the kind of the discipline that leads to an increased sense of self-respect when you do something good, quite apart from the fact, if you're doing something good for yourself physically, like drinking more water or juice or whatever it might be, but also that discipline helps you to have an increased kind of ability to almost love yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
So, Drew, where can people find out more about Organifi and all the videos and your community and everything else?
Yeah, so Organifi.com, ORGANIFI.com. The videos, fitlife.tv. That's FITLIFE.tv. And we have all of our videos there. Obviously, subscribe to us on YouTube. Facebook, we have a huge fan page. So check it out. Drew Canole, Canole is my last name, which you probably have at the top of the podcast anyway. Yeah. But this has been great, and I'm excited to meet you in London, dude.
Well, right. We're going to drink green juice, do ayahuasca. No.
Ayahuasca in the green juice.
Let's not do that. For our first time, I think we'd probably be better off doing it with other people who know what they're doing. But Drew, listen, you're doing great work, and I admire it a lot. So thank you for coming on Zestology.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for this week's Zestology. Thank you for listening, as always. If you like the podcast and you like the bit about books at the end of the podcast, if you're a book geek like me, we've got a new Zestology book club, which you might not know about yet, but if you search for Zestology book club on Facebook, and you can come and join the book club, and it's just a bit of chat about books. All the books that are featured on Zestology podcast are in the Zestology book club, and a few others as well. So yeah, if you like books and you want a few kind of non-fiction motivational reads, then head to the Zestology book club and come and join me. Also, you will have heard me talking about tracking quite a bit on this podcast in the past. So I'm a big fan of tracking, and one of the big frustrations for me is that I've never been able to find an app which actually tracks what I want to track and do it properly. I use a spreadsheet which is fairly inefficient, to be quite honest with you. I'm very excited that I'm now developing a tracking app. So this is kind of new, hot off the press information. I do it with my friend Tim, who runs NeuroWeb Marketing, which is a company in London. And I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So this is going to be in the next couple of months. It's going to be an app that you're going to be able to track your health and wellness levels in a way that cannot be done anywhere else and has never been done before. And it's awesome. So yeah, shout out to Tim. If you want more information on his company, then look up NeuroWeb Marketing. And the app, well, I'll let you know about that as soon as it's ready. Right, that's it. Enough wittering. Next week, it's all about the surprising power of music on Zestology. The power of music to help you de-stress, de-stimulate and relax. If you like a bit of music and a bit of relaxation and all the rest of it, you'll enjoy next week's Zestology. I'll see you then.